Hello, everybody. Today is the 16th of February. Valentine's Day is past. I don't know what section this is. I forgot to ask. It's government, I think, one of them.
And
One of the,
security.
and security.
You have no security.
Your
You've been kicked
security is
out
a
because
joke.
you forgot Valentine's Day.
And this is the Ice Storm edition.
Yeah.
We're all sheltering in place, so it's fine.
For now. Well, it's supposed to snow again this weekend. By the time that this airs, we may be snowed in again. So
There's like an inch of ice on everything that is below freezing temperature. It's just like everything has been ice tombed.
my poor blueberry plant. It's the first year I've had it, and it's like coated in an inch of ice, and I'm like, I don't know, this is gonna bloom this spring now.
That's the real tragedy of this whole weather event.
Yeah, not people losing their power or like not having heat, but my poor blueberry plant.
You know what's a good thing to work on if you are trapped indoors? Linode and your Linode projects. You can get $100 off if you use the Level 1 text coupon below. We had Devember. We're still mailing stuff out because of the snowstorm and because of some life stuff. And it turns out if we mail too many packages at once, we sort of get confused. So now we're just going a few at a time. And you should check out those Devember projects and learn how to code properly with the help of Linode. Not really like Linode's infrastructure hosting, but you can do really awesome hosted projects with it. We've done videos on WireGuard. There's S3 compatible shared object storage, self-hosted Minecraft servers, you name it. And Linode is sponsoring this episode of the news, so thanks, Linode.
Thank you.
All right, our first story, we'll just drop right in. The U.S. has dropped its suit against California net neutrality rule, but ISPs are still fighting it.
Oh, that's not the first story.
Oh,
Yeah, I
wait.
was also
That's
confused
not the
for a
first
second. I was
story.
like, wait.
My bad. We'll come to that one later. Its border agents can search phones freely under the new circuit court ruling.
Yeah, that's we've had this kind of thing for a while. Like they've been doing it, but everybody's like, no, you can't do that. That's illegal. So just make it legal, right?
Yeah, this is going to end badly. This
Also,
has been going on since 2017.
I thought about throwing it in there, but then I got lazy and didn't do it. That map of what they considered the border to be,
Yeah, it's
remember
100
that?
miles inland. Yeah.
it's like 40 or 50% of the country, or maybe more than that.
Well, if you go by population, it's like 90% of where people live is considered the border. It's amazing gymnastics is to like redefine words. But
And it's
yeah,
also not just like, hey, you need to unlock this phone. It's like they can do the full Celebrite invasion based on this.
we're just going to copy all of your stuff, and there's nothing you can do. This is not American. This is not right.
It's not. I can't wait. Well, I mean, I can because it's not great because it'll be an invasion of your privacy. But like next time you get on a plane, Wendell, and they look at your phone and they're like, "How do you survive with so many notifications? Do you want me to answer some of these emails, sir?" Like they just feel bad for you.
Yeah, it definitely is brain damage inducing. I mean, for sure. It's just not a great situation all the way around. But there's also a lot of things that can be taken out of context. Like we actually saw cases of foreign students coming back to America for school, and it was like, hey, your friend said death to America. We can't let you pass the border. And it's like, well, but he's just an idiot, being idiotic. And I was like, I'm sorry, you can't go back to school.
Well, they don't even have to search your phone for that.
Yeah.
This is worse than that.
Oh, I hope this is overturned because the earlier court sort of found that your phone is very private and it's not reasonable to search something that you reasonably expect to be very private. So, I don't know. Kind of leads into our next story. U.S. senators propose limiting liability shield for U.S. social media platforms. And this is from Reuters. So basically, if you see Twitter putting things in your tweets, it's like, ooh, we want to stop that. We don't want people to know that we're lying.
Yeah, this is the old 230 argument, which we're not getting the same level of attacks on 230 from the Biden administration, but it's still pretty bad.
Yeah. We've got a story in the business section about Terraria with this too, where this kind of ties in. Not the Section 230 limitation, but it's like, I don't know that policymakers are not wrong. They're onto something with, it is weird that a few companies control, the platform, but it's also a private business thing. So it's not that it's unconstitutional. The Constitution wasn't meant to apply there. The Constitution was meant to apply to the government doing things, not private companies. So it's definitely an odd situation that's emergent from our technology.
It's also, and some of them have thrown in little things like you have to earn a certain amount of money or have a certain amount of users or whatever, but it's taking these rules that only like a dozen giant companies are abusing, but they're changing the laws for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, it ultimately would have a negative impact. Like doing away with Section 230 ultimately would have a bigger negative impact on smaller companies than larger companies. But historically, that's how business is done in America. You lock up a business segment and then you write laws so that nobody can deal with that business segment again. It's really a pretty simple formula.
You know what we should do? We should start an app that doesn't do anything, but it also doesn't record any data. And then when we get to the point where it's like carbon credits, where we have like privacy credits, our app that does nothing will just sell those credits.
I think Apple might be way ahead of you on that one, but we'll get to that in the business section. Could be wrong. I don't know. The other thing with the Biden administration is, remember the whole TikTok forced sale? It's like, Walmart and Oracle can band together and buy the U.S. subsidiary of TikTok. Well, Bloomberg says that's on hold because,
I think this is sort of the Biden administration wanting nothing to do with any of Trump's legacies, but at the same time, wanting the same thing that Trump wanted. So they have to be like, well, we're going to look at this, but ultimately it'll turn out to be the same thing.
I like Futurama. It's like, this goes too far. This doesn't go not far enough. And it's like, oh, wait, they're saying the same thing. It's not great.
I saw an ad for TikTok last night on the television.
Oh, what were you watching?
HGTV.
That seems like a weird crowd to be pulling into TikTok, huh?
Yeah,
I guess
it
that's
was like
the blank spot for them.
They're like, oh, it was an ad for like doing dances and stuff, and I was like, are people who enjoy doing dances online and people who are looking for home renovation tips, isn't that Venn diagram just two circles?
Well, Krista, do you like doing dances? I mean, you're the prime candidate here.
I enjoy dancing, but not on TikTok.
They might be looking at Pinterest because a lot of those like home DIY people was responsible for the meteoric rise of Pinterest. It's like, look at this amazing thing that I knitted. It's like 1 million people saw it. And we're like, yeah, this is amazing. I will never be able to do this.
Do you think people are like TikToking their home renovations? Like, look at this paint color. And it's just like a 30-second clip.
Yeah. Where they like time lapsed it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
30 seconds of sanding.
30 seconds of sanding that was actually 8 hours of sanding condensed into 30 seconds. It's like, I can do this. And then I actually go to do it. And it's like, this is a miserable, backbreaking work. It's just terrible. Speaking of things that are terrible, Vice News. Is this Beverly Hills cop playing Sublime's Santeria? Is that how you say that? To avoid being live streamed. And the answer was yes. This is the darkest timeline.
That's genuinely funny. I mean, it's horrible, but also kind of funny.
But at the same time, now, I don't care for law enforcement, but I got to give the cop a little bit of understanding here because this was somebody who is well known to waste their time and harass them. And it's like, activist stuff. So it's probably not their first encounter with him. And it might be less police corruption and more police annoyance.
How long until the police, working together with like Amazon for Ring? It's like how TV commercials have that ultrasonic sound that you can't hear, that your TV emits, that your app on your phone is designed to pick up. How long until police wear something that emits that kind of a tone and then your app just doesn't work?
Well, they would have to be in collusion with all the app makers. Is that what you're indicating there?
Like Amazon and Ring, for example?
It's too easy to test, though, and then activists like this guy would go around posting up solar panels emitting that and shut everything down. I might think about doing that. That sounds like a lot of fun, actually.
It's coming. It'll probably be mandated by law within our lifetime that it's like, there are these ultrasonic tones that cause devices to work or not work. I mean, think about like a secure facility. It's like you're entering a secure facility. You can't take your phone with you. That's not super convenient. But if you could turn off the microphones and the Wi-Fi and the cameras and all the other stuff, maybe.
But it would be easy to disable that in your phone or create a false version of it.
That
true. Gives too much power to the citizenry. You can't have that.
That's why we need Apple to continue locking down their phones. So,
although technically you can block mobile signals with your own device, but if they find that, they will bring the hammer down on you very hard.
Speaking of weakened security, the AP has activists complaining of weakened voting security standards. This is to do with plugging a Wi-Fi, like having a wireless modem in voting machines. What could possibly go wrong?
But the bigger question is, why would you fight for this?
Why would you fight for a wireless modem in a voting machine?
Right, like this was taken out of the standard, and then this new standard put it back. Who put it back and why?
They want to be extra lazy. Yeah, I agree. It doesn't make sense.
But aren't they saying that they're not even going to use them? They're just there?
They're going to use them for updates, not when voting is going on, but when they need to do maintenance on the machines. So we need the modems to be there for when they're not in use, but we're doing maintenance on them, which is kind of a weird argument.
So the day before the elections, when we push that secret update.
We need the mechanism to be in place just in case something goes sideways.
Right after the auditors leave, we need to push that update.
And that sounds really, really, really conspiracy theory. Like, no, we would never do that. And then I think about all the times in history where it's like the really appalling thing happened. And it's like, did we really do that? And it's like, yeah, we totally did. We totally gave those people syphilis and then studied them for 30 years. That was completely fine. I don't know. The next story is the one that I was most excited about forever, but I'm also like super skeptical. So
there's a lot to be skeptical about.
Motherboard has. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying the quotes from that guy, the further you get, the more you're like, I don't know.
The U.S. Navy has patents on tech it says will, quote unquote, engineer the fabric of reality. The U.S. Navy's UFO patents sound like they've been ripped from a science fiction novel. So, Cesar pays. And there's a new effect called the PACE effect. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. The patent office said that as well. Apparently, the patent office, somebody from the patent office, got some demonstrations that were reasonably convincing. So they're like, okay, sounds good.
And if it's true, I mean, it's basically world changing if it's true. But this would, I can't imagine, because this is very much against the American hegemony, don't you think?
Yes.
I mean, if you get this, it levels the playing field in a way that would be unacceptable to the petrodollar.
My favorite quote in this article is, Pace continued to toot his own plasma horn. Do you realize that my work culminates in the enablement of the Pace effect, an original physical concept? Such high energy radiation can locally interact with the vacuum energy state.
He sounds like a cartoon. But if they tested it and still wanted the patents, this has got to really fuel the whole UFO thing, because it's like tied into maybe he discovered it from the aliens.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem like we would get this kind of a breakthrough from this vector unless it was, recovered spacecraft material from an extraterrestrial origin.
But could it explain all those UFO footage things that we've seen
we saw
recently?
this year? Yeah.
I don't know. It could also be a really giant honeypot. Like, they're just baiting the Russians or the Chinese to be like, we're going to put all this really awesome sounding science on this server located at IP address, 127. Just to see what happens. I don't know. There's something more than meets the eye going on here, because this can't just be a disinformation campaign. But at the same time, I don't know that these things really exist.
Could be a recruitment campaign.
Yeah, it could be. It's like, I want to work on that. Okay, well, help us build it. Oh no, the technology was lost.
Oh, you've been reassigned.
Yeah. I tried to find something similar that happened like this historically. There were a few things that came close around cold fusion, like cold fusion in the 1960s. And it was like cold fusion's just around the corner. But the answer was it's more complicated than that.
The big conspiracy theory one is that guy who supposedly had the car that was splitting water.
Yeah. Which doesn't seem like that. That's not. Water is already burned hydrogen, so it's not gonna. I don't know. It's just, it didn't really work out that way. The Farnsworth
some
fuser.
People say it did, and they say he was killed for it.
Well, I mean, I don't know. That one's a little. My personal favorite is the Farnsworth fuser. The guy that did TV actually also invented fusion, but it doesn't produce more energy than it takes to set up the fusion reaction. So it's actually pretty easy to build a Farnsworth fuser, a Farnsworth fusion reactor. There's actually a whole hobby club around doing that. But it puts you on a list, but it doesn't really do anything useful. So I don't know. And now we come to the other story that's not really anything useful. U.S. drops its suit against California net neutrality rule, but ISPs are still fighting it. So this is remnants of Ajit Pai is what this heading could be filed under.
Yeah, there's not really much to say about this. I mean, they're, like I said before, they're tearing down everything that Trump did. And this is an obvious one.
Yeah. California wants all traffic to be treated equally. So they want your ISP not to be able to charge Netflix when you watch Netflix, which seems reasonable to me. I don't know. Microsoft to add nation-state activity alerts to Defender for Office 365. Boy, how crazy would it be? You log into your webmail and it's like, note, North Korea is really trying hard to get into your email.
Do you feel a little bit important if that happens to you?
Probably a case of mistaken identity.
Do you screenshot that and tweet it?
Yes, you absolutely screenshot that and tweet it. It's like, oh, he's on to us.
I'm asking.
See, I would assume that, not necessarily that it was mistaken identity. I would assume it was, oh, they're trying to get everyone's crap, and I'm just included in this. Great.
It turns out they're actually, when they do something this high level, they're very specific because they don't want it getting out there.
Yeah.
So if you get this, you probably are special in some way.
It makes sense that you would have to know, too, because sometimes you would get a very, very sophisticated malware attachment that otherwise looks completely legit, and you might not even realize that something bad has happened. So these kind of alerts are maybe important for warning you that you may be experiencing this kind of an attack through other vectors.
So here's the real question, though. So say you get this and you tweet the screenshot of it. Do you get a blue check mark after you tweet that you've been targeted?
I think you get an orange check mark.
Twitter has to cross-reference you with the North Korean government, and then you get that.
Oh, well, that's perfect then.
Oh, yeah, you definitely should get an orange check mark. It's like, you're listed as, some kind of dissident in North Korea. That automatically makes you a freedom fighter for the rest of the world. Orange check mark. That's going to lead to some weird gamification where somebody's like going after all the different check marks. It's like, I'm listed as both a hero and a political dissident in all the countries because of, it's like I'm an enemy of this country, but I'm a friend of this country, which also makes me a friend of that country because they're allies, but these other two countries are enemies. That could lead to some really awkward family Christmases.
If they wanted to gamify that more, they could do different colored check marks for different things, like politician, singer, YouTube celebrity, then it's like, oh, I got to collect them all.
What, Ryan?
People go crazy for that kind of thing. Source our forum with the badges. I'll occasionally get messages that are like, hi, I posted this, but I didn't automatically get the badge. And I'm like, okay, I got you. But I'm surprised people really like that.
We should have a badge for badge whiners.
Oh, we should. Most of them auto give out, but there's a few that don't. So, I mean, it's fine, but it surprises me that people care.
Badges for badge whiners is the perfect segue into our next story. On Mac Rumors, Apple Privacy Chief, North Dakota bill would threaten to destroy the iPhone as you know it. So North Dakota is saying, hey, if you make a phone, you can't make app developers use your payment processor. They could use their own payment processor. And the North Dakota legislature rightly thinks, well, I think we figured out electronic payment processing. Like, there's a ton of different companies that will handle and process credit cards, sending them ultimately to Visa or MasterCard, which is ultimately kind of hilarious because Visa and MasterCard and, Amex control that with an iron fist. But there are a lot of clearinghouses that will process credit card transactions. And these legislators are saying, well, you should allow third-party payment processors other than just, Apple or Google. And Apple is saying, oh, no, this is terrifying.
Apple doesn't like it. Apple will like the next story. Good segue. Good job, me.
What? Oh.
I did a segue.
Nevada bill would allow tech companies to create governments. So this is from the Associated Press, and there's some good info here. But if you remember the story that we did on, what was it, Tesla? It was about 6 months ago. You remember how Elon Musk was talking about they were basically going to move wherever they could get the most local cooperation, because if they're spinning up a lithium-ion battery plant, there's like local regulations and they need to do stuff. Oh, yeah, the boiler snake remembers.
There he goes.
So this is kind of like what Elon Musk was talking about. I guess Nevada looked at what Elon Musk was talking about, and there's like, okay, if we need to do this. If you look at Foxconn, that was the other one, and Samsung, where Samsung is trying to spin up in Texas, these are huge multi-billion-dollar operations, and they often get caught up in a lot of red tape, environmental concerns, building concerns, zoning, property rights, and this seems like it's not inaccurate to say that Nevada is going to let companies create governments, but it would basically let companies take over an area and set up their own rules that is approved by state legislature, but otherwise they operate autonomously.
Basically a lordship.
Yeah,
the
kind of.
Government is the king.
Yeah.
Your company is the lord, and you're the serf who wants potatoes.
Here's the problem with this, and they'll let them get away with it, but they shouldn't. First of all, if you read the details, you will be under the local county until such time as you can build certain infrastructure. So basically they're subsidizing you. While you get started, you use the county resources. But when you get autonomous, you cut yourself off and you take over local government.
You have your own police department and fire department.
But then now you have created a little fiefdom, and it's now doesn't necessarily have the open traffic that a regular county would. Like, I'm not going to be able to drive onto the Apple, whatever you want to call it, parcel. Yeah. They're going to have roadblocks at every entrance. And they're going to be like, you don't need to be at Apple, but I could drive through any other county in the world or in the country. So basically, they're just selling off public land to the corporate overlords.
I don't know if the driving through thing is the best example, though, because I've definitely taken a wrong turn, and it's like, you don't belong here, son. It's like, I'll just take my speeding ticket and be on my way, sir. Thank you.
But that's the opposite side of that. These will be bastions of like low crime and, lots of nice places to eat and shop, and you can walk the streets and they're clean.
The corporation would never hire, such a filthy miscreant as you. Oh man, how dystopian is it going to be? Dark timeline. It's like, I've been fired from the Musk super factory, and also now I'm homeless, and also now I have to leave the community. Like,
we've seen this before, like where we've grown up. They used to have the coal mining towns, and like the coal mining company owned everything. And if you spoke out or asked for higher pay, you got kicked out of the town, and then there you were with nothing to show for all your work.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, but it seems like we're losing about 80 years of progress there, Krista.
Surely that would never happen in the United States. Take a lesson from Appalachia. Don't let this happen.
How great is it that all these companies universally crap on coal?
Yeah.
And try to paint themselves as, these saviors of the environment.
It's so ethical. We would never do the exact same thing the coal companies used to do to their workers.
It is really horrifying, the parallels, but there are a lot of parallels like with that, come to think of it. That's just terrifying. You literally would go to the company store in the case of the Musk Township. So
here's a great question. Here's the audience engagement. If Pichai had governmental powers, if he had like judicial powers in his little fiefdom, would the Gabru thing have played out any differently?
It probably would have been worse. There probably would have been gag orders that were issued by the municipality.
Would she have been detained for an amount of time?
Probably. Remember Musk called the police on that one guy that took some documents or whatever? And it's like, I think he's going to come back and shoot up the plant. I mean, that's basically how it played out.
Oh, if you gave Musk this kind of power, it would go so bad. He would probably ruin him because he wouldn't be able to control himself.
Well, this has happened before. Like, we've done so much to come far away from this, and then they're just casually giving that power back to companies again. What was wrong?
We've forgotten.
Here's another engagement challenge. Take every big tech company like Apple, Google, Tesla, whatever. What would the name of their Pinkertons be?
Well, those are going to be some amazing comments that we'll wish we could have used for the title of this week's episode.
Oh, yeah. We try so hard to come up with clever titles, and sometimes someone will say something in the comments, and it's like, damn it, how did we miss that?
All right. Our next article from the Register, accused murderer wins the right to check source code of DNA testing kit used by police. New Jersey court says the defendant must be able to challenge the evidence. This is not the first time this has happened, but this is maybe the first time this has happened where there's not so many restrictions on the DNA testing company. I was sort of shocked and horrified to learn that the way that this testing happens is not always as clean as you would like. You think DNA matching is like an exact science. It turns out it's not. Not at all. The last time this happened and the source code was audited, a number of bugs were revealed that revealed that the accuracy of these kind of tests was not as much as you'd think in certain edge case scenarios. And that was sort of documented by looking at the source code.
I don't think there's any precedent, though, of companies like this just like lying about stuff like this to protect the business model. Oh, Theranos.
No history of lying at all. Yeah. It's going to be interesting. This is going to be one to follow.
I watched the documentary about her, Inventor something. Have you guys seen that?
Is it on Netflix? I think I remember seeing that somewhere.
Maybe. I don't know. It just appeared on my hard drive somehow. But I'd never heard her speak before. She has the deepest voice. Have you heard her speak?
No.
You gotta watch that because, she's this pretty girl and she's small and she gets on that stage and she starts talking and they're like, "Whoa, what's going on?"
Is it like Dr. Girlfriend from Venture Brothers?
It's not that bad, but it's as bad as you would expect that to be and still be realistic.
Wow. Speaking of unexpected voices, I don't know, segue. The Guardian has the article about Beijing blocking access to the Clubhouse app after a surge in user numbers. So if you don't know, the Clubhouse app is about voice chat, and the great filter of China doesn't really deal well with voice chat and censoring things. So they're just blocking it.
Unfortunately, I just discovered that Clubhouse is iOS only.
No!
Bummer.
We were going to do it. We're going to try it out. But luckily, it seems like every tech company in the universe is killing themselves to get their version of it out because it's hot for 10 minutes.
We'll talk more about that in the business section. Facebook has already mobilized all their developers, so Reuters has the article, EU's Vestager warns Apple to treat all apps equally amid privacy dispute. Europe's antitrust chief has warned Apple Inc. to give equal treatment to all apps on its platform amid the iPhone maker's privacy changes that have drawn charges of anti-competitive practices from rival Facebook. So what they're talking about here is the app privacy labels. How accurate are they? Does each company have to comply with them exactly the same way? And so far, it looks like the answer is no. And we'll have a lot more information about that in the business section. But this article from Reuters is really just starting with the tip of the iceberg on this. And so basically the EU is telling Apple, you're going to have to approach this in a very even and controlled way. Otherwise, we're going to fine you.
Apple was not immediately available for comment.
Yeah.
Surprise.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Apple's definitely going hardest on Facebook and a couple other companies. Google probably too, but yeah, it's just, I don't know. Our next article is kind of a follow-up from the last couple of weeks. Twitter blocks accounts in India as Modi pressures social media. So remember how last week we reported on some accounts that were blocked and then they were unblocked? Some of them, not all of them, are blocked again. And this has a little bit of background as to why.
In the small interim when they decided not to block them before they immediately gave in to what the government demanded, because, and to give them a little bit of credit, Modi said if they didn't agree, then every Twitter India employee would be under arrest.
Oh.
So, but for a while there, they were like, no, we don't stifle we don't stifle political speech. That's not who we are. And everybody was like, didn't you ban the president?
Those were extreme circumstances, but at the same time, yeah, I don't know. India is considering a 4-day work week, but with longer shifts. So, hey, maybe you could work 10 hours a day for 4 days, or 12 hours a day for 4 days, and then have 3 days that you're not working, maybe, possibly.
I feel like
that doesn't hash out to 40 hours. Is their work week traditionally more than 40?
48.
Oh.
I feel like I'd rather just, like, if that was the case, I'd rather just have the 5-day, because
Yeah,
I feel like
12
there reaches a point where you don't get productive anymore. Like
12 is too much. The last 4 of that 12, you're not going to get anything done.
Right.
There are days when, like, I've really got to, like, figure out something complicated, and after, like, 4 hours of that, it's just like, I'm done. I can't. There's just
Mentally,
nothing.
yeah.
I can answer emails of just silly questions for the rest of the day, and that's all I'm good for. How do I change the icon? Just upload a new icon.
Yeah, and you know, when you're an Indian tech worker, after you've defrauded the 4th old couple out of their life savings, you got nothing left. You're spent at that point.
It was so much work. That last couple, they were on to me, and I was so clever. It was my cleverest ever, and yeah,
I had to fabricate 5-6 different documents. I'm out. I'm done. Need a drink.
So, I don't know. The BBC reports that Iran has hidden spyware in wallpaper and restaurant and games apps. So, TIL, that there are wallpaper apps you can download. What a useless, terrible application. What an incredible amount of risk to take with your device. For wallpapers.
Well, I mean,
they're images.
super bright flashlight apps. I mean, come on.
Exotic flowers.
People don't understand the phone, and they love to download stuff, it seems.
The Furball malware, domestic kittens operation, was first identified in 2018. And Checkpoint said there was evidence that it had run at least 10 campaigns in 2017. Record calls and other sounds, track the device's location, collect identifiers, grab text messages. Like, this is really bad stuff. Oh, you agreed to that when you installed. You want free wallpapers? There's a cost. Everything is like the Needful Things movie. So,
I refuse to install almost every kind of app on my phone, and I'm not even a political dissident. I mean, I am, but I'm not active. If I were, I would be so much more paranoid about my phone. I can't imagine being in this situation in Iran and being like, yeah, let me get this wallpaper app.
Your existential dread is so terrible that it's like, I really have to have the kitten's wallpaper.
Why not just take pictures of kittens in your neighborhood?
Because they're all dirty and covered with
Because you're afraid to leave the house because you're followed every time you go to the cat park.
As soon as you get a local attachment to a cat, the counter spies will just kill them in front of you, and it's just like, I can't live through that again.
Hang it outside your door.
You go and see them the next day, and you can tell precisely where the battery is under their skin.
No. Speaking of terrible things happening like that, Myanmar's new military government orders a temporary block to internet access. And then we have this lovely picture here. Yeah, this is an article that's updating on the situation there. It's not good.
I think there was another update. I don't think they're blocking everything at this point, but they're still blocking the big sites, the social media and stuff.
Yeah, they're trying to keep the population from freaking out. There's the graph here, but and the tweet that goes with that. But Twitter is now being restricted as a couple of providers. I mean, it's just it's not a good situation if you're living there right now, from what I understand.
What do you think the level of awareness is about that coup on the ground there? Like, is this actually affecting things a lot, or do people already know?
I think it was almost like what happened here, except the other, like it actually succeeded. Like, I think everybody knew, and it was like, wait, this is really happening, and there's a lot of people that are going along with it, but there's a lot of people that are not going along with it. So,
But the thing that happened here had no chance of success. I mean, they could have escalated that as much as they wanted. There was no chance of it like actually changing the government.
Well, what if there were enough people that supported that inside, say, the Pentagon?
Yeah, that could do it. That's why it's totally different. In the case of Myanmar, or I don't know how to pronounce that, Burma, the exact people who needed to do it did it. Yeah. In the U.S., a useless class of people did it and just handed power to the other side.
It does seem like a horrible mess. What else is a horrible mess? When you tried to poison a Florida city's water supply, police say. So you've probably already heard about this. This is, hackers hacked into a thing to change the amount of sodium hydroxide levels in the water. And if they had raised the levels, it would have poisoned everybody. But really, this is just the story of people that run the water supply don't know anything at all about information security, because this was not even secured on a basic level.
Here's the ultimate question about this article. So he actually broke in twice. Once just to look at it, and then so many minutes later to actually go in and crank up that to lethal levels. So was he secretly like just asking himself, should I do this, or trying to hype himself up to it? Or was he Googling all the different chemicals to try to find out what would happen if he cranked them all the way up?
Yeah, they were probably just like, is this a game? Is this like a farm simulator? Let's see what happens if I turn this number all the way up. Which, of course, the machinery won't do that anyway.
There's a point where we should have stopped, and we've clearly passed it, so let's just keep going and see what happens.
I think that like your local water supply, your local, like city and county governments, I think they should embrace this strategy. They should just, set up a computer that's wildly insecure, just put it on the internet without a firewall, wait for the inevitable to happen, and then go to the feds and ask for more money to get for their IT budget. It seems like a no-brainer.
But it also pointed out that
gets poisoned.
They all use the same remote account, and I know they all use the same password.
And it's all wildly insecure.
Yeah, it was a mess.
It makes you, I guess, feel better in a way, because it's like, oh, well, surely that's not happening in my town.
No, it totally is.
I'm almost certain it is happening.
Yeah.
In our town and everyone else's town.
This is actually... Go ahead.
You know how you can avoid this kind of risk in your life?
Collect rainwater.
Nestle water. The purest, most beautiful water in the world.
Do you shower in Nestle water, though?
If
I
I
think
could.
this would have burnt your skin as well. So, like, if you'd taken a shower at the time and, like, had this succeeded, that would have also hurt you.
If it were affordable to do so, Krista, I would absolutely shower in Nestle water.
No one can afford that. Patreon, that level X.
This is actually a pretty easy experiment for you to do. Some of the information security people I was talking to, they basically have like a water treatment facility in a box, just with a bunch of virtual machines, and all the programmable logic controllers are simulated, and you can just dump one of those things on the internet and wait for it to be compromised, and because it's all virtualized, you can study what the attackers are doing. And that's actually a pretty easy thing to do. If you would like to set up your own municipal water supply using your own home internet connection and just see what the attackers will do, I promise you it won't take long until it's compromised. Like a few days, a few hours, a week maybe, depends on how insecure you want to make it when you create it. But if you have that infrastructure there, it will definitely attract a certain kind of hacker.
I need a rainwater barrel.
You don't need anything. You just, like, it's all simulated. The attackers don't know it's not real.
I just want a rainwater barrel
A rainwater barrel as a honeypot for attackers.
for my own peace of mind.
Around here, you can have a real honeypot and see what the bears get into. No?
That's true.
Okay. Authorities arrest SIM-swapping gang that targeted celebrities. The big takeaway from this article is they got away with $100 million in cryptocurrency? I had no idea celebrities were so into crypto.
No, have you not been seeing the headlines? Though, like more and more, they're pouring into it. This is the, like that's the whole like investing curve. This is where the trendsetters start to get into it. This is the tulip phase when that line really starts to go up.
I just looked up Bitcoin. It's at 47,000.
Yeah. Do you think JP Morgan's estimate of 150 is something we're going to see this year?
I don't know about this year, but if all these big guys start to get that fear of missing out, it's not at all unlikely.
That's just bananas.
'Cause think about if, MasterCard gets into it and that's successful, then all the other credit card companies are doing it, and they're going to buy a huge block of Bitcoin to cover their assets. So that's just a big, giant block of buys that's going to drive it way up.
It's insane, but sort of exciting. Researchers discover new malware from Chinese hacking group. More advanced persistent threats. Definitely this should be on your radar if you're into information security. There's not really a lot here in this article other than, we found some new stuff. And it was like, all right, give me the details. And they're like, it's called Bendy Bear.
Well, it's supposedly very, very effective and new. Just be afraid. Just always be afraid.
Another thing that people were afraid of this week was Raspberry Pi users are mortified as Microsoft repository that phones home is added to the Pi OS. Okay, first of all, it does not phone home to Microsoft. It phones home to Microsoft in the same respect as, well, they add the repository to the Pi and in order to let you install Visual Studio Code. I don't see this as a big deal. I think this is people freaking out about nothing. If you don't like it, you can comment it out. But the Raspberry Pi people added Microsoft's repo to be installed by default so that you can get some of Microsoft's stuff, like Visual Studio Code.
Well, they apparently did not put that in the changelog, and they added it with a script that came in afterwards so that it cannot be blocked before installation. It must be removed after installation. So it's a little weird.
That is a little weird. I'll grant you that. That should have been in the changelog. There probably should have been a warning. This was a communication failure, but I don't think it's anything nefarious.
Or they knew that people would freak out, and they tried to avoid that. And by trying to avoid it, they caused the freak out.
I think trying to, if they knew that, if they did that because they knew that people would freak out, they should have known that that would cause people to freak out even more. I shouldn't have done it that way.
And when it comes to Linux, you can never pull one of these moves where it's like, well, nobody will notice.
They absolutely will notice.
Yeah, the level of mental handicap in that audience guarantees that someone will look at it. Probably more than one.
Listen, I can't update the packages on my Arch installation because I have to go through line by line at the thing, seeing what it does, so that it's like, and even then I'll still miss something. It's like, it shouldn't have done that. Oh yeah, no, it totally does that. Oh, the person who wrote this script was just really super clever about how they did it, and I didn't immediately realize what it was doing. Yeah, it's fun. You know who else had a bad week? CD Projekt Red. Game studio discloses a ransomware attack and an extortion attempt. Well, I've got bad news for you. That source code is already on sale. At least part of the source code for Cyberpunk 2077 and Witcher 3 is already for sale. The opening bid was $1,000.
I think they did the right thing. Do you think that there's any chance if they would have paid, they would have stopped that sale?
No, not a chance. It might have been a little bit more clandestine, but it would have shown up on the public internet within a couple of years for sure.
How long until a pirate copy of Cyberpunk contains that Iranian malware?
They might actually be okay because the good old games version is DRM free, and so I think the market will have. There's no value in offering a quote unquote DRM free version of the game, so they might actually dodge a bullet on this one.
That would be funny if that became the way to avoid that kind of ransomware, but you know the other game companies would never follow suit.
It is funny. There was a game that was released that it had a lot of performance issues and weird glitches, and eventually they released a non-de novo version, the de novo being the DRM. They released a non-de novo version of that game, and it was like 20% faster on all machines, and all the glitches were gone. And I'm hoping that's a lesson learned for everybody.
But we've seen those stories for 15 years. How long has de novo existed?
Well, this was a AAA title that was only out for about a year before they just got rid of it, and then everything was better.
They're not going to stop doing that. They've said in those press releases and the investor meetings and stuff, that first week is really the only thing they think about.
Yeah. Speaking of tracking and wanting to know everything about you, what about browser favicons that can be used for undetectable supercookies to track you online? If you're not familiar with Supercookies, that's a rabbit hole that I've just introduced you to that you could Google on for hours. It's a lot of fun. Literally built Supercookie code before for analytics tracking. Don't feel good about it, but it works. It's great stuff. This is just using favicons. So these are holes in your browser's incognito mode that will let advertisers and other people track you across VPN usage, across different browsers, across incognito mode, you name it. This particular one is a hole that is based on caching favorite icons, which seems to bypass the incognito mode. Neat.
Well, they could store. They know that if you are hitting them for the icon, that you've not been there before. And then if you are hitting them for the icon, they could simply rename the icon that goes into your cache so that they know that it's you when you come back again.
Yeah, they can also read the pixels from the favorite icon and extraneous data and store your tracking ID in the pixel, like in the actual favicon. So everybody gets a unique favicon, and if you show up somewhere, it's like, oh, here, we can read that with JavaScript. It's fine.
And I don't think there's currently any way to get around that. I'm sure somebody's working on a browser plugin as we speak.
It's probably going to be a while before this is fixed on iOS, because Google still hasn't really pushed any iOS updates to their apps. Whoops. It's pretty egregious. All right, that's it. What do we got coming up for tomorrow?
Looks like it's going to be business and social.
Oh, exciting.
It is sort of exciting.
The security's done early in this week, so that means it's all like uphill from here.
I don't know. Some of these dark timeline security stories are a lot of fun.
That's true. It is also supposed to be snowy. But though I guess we're recording it now, so it doesn't matter. But it'll be snowy by that time.
I guess, can we get a snowy goodbye?